And I think this is something men really underestimate when they're picking a partner. They look for whoever they like and they think that they can change a woman, and they think if they treat a woman well, if you court her correctly, she's all yours. But I always say your competition is her childhood. If she had a chaotic childhood, you can give her and offer her the most stability there is to be found, but she will reject it. She'll seek chaos and she will glorify chemistry. Whereas if you choose somebody who's had a stable upbringing and lots of love, when you give her love, she reciprocates it. But when you give it to somebody who's come from a broken home and a broken background, when you give her love, she then sabotages it. So men are giving love recklessly, women are giving love recklessly, thinking that they can change this person. But this is why arranged marriages, there was that common understanding. Like, I remember my parents saying things like, oh, you know, their family is a bit like dodgy, don't go near them, and this family's good, and this. And at the time thinking that's so judgmental, but there's actually psychological validity to what they were saying.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Well, it's not, it makes a whole load of sense the way you just explained it. For me, I would have never thought that. Okay, so but what happens nowadays, you know, people meet others, there's all these different ways of meeting, you know. When I was in my late teens, I'd be looking at a girl like you in a bar for 3 or 4 hours and try to summon the courage up to come and say hello, how are you, and get your number and stuff. And that required a lot of, you know, a lot of bravery, because you had to deal with rejection and stuff like that. Nowadays, obviously, it's different because it's all on apps and stuff like that, which we'll go into.
Yeah.
But people seem to fall in love with people that aren't necessarily the right people for them very quickly. That whole kind of like honeymoon phase happens, you know. We're in, you know, the 3 months dating, and before they know it, they're telling each other they love each other and they want to live together and stuff. To me, when I look back on all my relationships, it's like, you know nothing about that person for the first year and a half, 2 years, really.
Yeah.
And you know, no, it's not so much knowing about them if you don't know how you're going to truly be around them yourself as well.
Because they bring out sides of you. They bring out different sides of you, people doing, yeah.
And so there's this kind of like this false narrative that exists in the early parts of a relationship that needs to be worked through before you can truly be a couple. With that said and done, do you think that people are aware of that, or do you think they just still go into relationships, you know, willfully naive and romanticizing everything before?
I think the rise of romanticism has left to the death of marriage, because what's happening is people are so attuned to what they want and their desires and not their outcomes in life. Now, if you want to get married and settle down, the person who you might want, who's like the hottest girl in the room or the most exciting guy, he might be what you want, and that might meet your current desires, and you might constantly fall in love instantly. But somebody you need for a long-term marriage might be somebody more settled, calm, and stable. So what's happening is, because we're being told that feeling, that chemistry is what you should go by, that gut feeling is so special, you should follow that instinct, we are being led in the wrong direction, because that instinct contains all our desires. That could be like a desire to have drugs, it could be food, whatever. We're supposed to actually forego those feelings for the sake of our long-term goals. And if that person that gives you all those butterflies but isn't good for you, we should be avoiding that. But romanticism has taught you that feeling suggests it's love and it's special and you should work with that person. And really, it's counterproductive to long-term goals. So that's why marriage is falling apart.
What do women look for and what do men look for? And has it always been the same, or has that evolved?
We look for a reincarnation of our childhood.
Okay. What does that mean?
So if you were given consistent care, love, unconditional, all that good stuff as a child, which very few people get, but if you do get it, if you're lucky enough to come out of childhood unscathed, then you'll look for stable, caring, consistent monotony, and you'll meet those people who just met somebody in high school, got married, and now they're still together, they just walk their dog on the weekends, very calm life. And there's other people who grew up with chaos, abuse, neglect, trauma, something like that. And so what they'll look for is somebody who can reincarnate those feelings. And they don't realize it. So they find themselves in one toxic relationship after the other, saying this person was bad, that person was bad, not realizing that they attached to that toxicity because of how they've been programmed to think love is defined by chaos.
Okay, well, this is going to challenge you then a bit, or maybe me. So I have 2 daughters. They both come from a broken home like I do, because they're my daughters and I got divorced. One of them, when she was 17, started dating a boy. She's 23 years old now. They're still dating 6.5 years later. Yeah. Very happy, very settled, planning their future together. Amazing. The other one is 3 years younger, so she's 20, nearly 21. And the thought of a relationship to her is just like, what a nightmare, what a headache. You know, it's about having fun, enjoying herself, you know, drinking, smoking, partying, whatever it might be. And looking at her sister who's settled down, she's like, why would you want to do that? That sounds really boring.
Yeah.
But you've got two kids that have both come from the same environment.
Well, two kids don't always get the same parents because their birth order has an impact. Their natural sensitivity has an impact. So that's why you'll get two kids from an alcoholic, and one will be an alcoholic and one will never touch alcohol, because two children are not raised by the same parents, even though they have the same parents. Where you are in your marriage, where you are financially changes, and the reaction they get from the child because of their own nature also changes. But I would say usually when people have gone through a broken home environment, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it, because I'm sure you gave them lots of unconditional love throughout it, but it can lead to two responses. One is where they become hyper clingy to whoever they love because they've seen it break down. So what happens is who they fall in love with, they could almost like live in that person's skin. They love them, they stick to them, and they work through even things that they shouldn't work through. They want to work through it because that fear of abandonment. Now, that fear of abandonment in another child can lead to complete independence. I think my fear of abandonment is going to be manifested by being completely autonomous, not needing a relationship, keeping relationships at arm's length. So they both might have a level of abandonment in them, not because you did anything wrong, but just the watching what a divorce looks like. It's children learn, relationships end. So in that process, they either become hyper attached or hyper independent, and both of them are semi-trauma responses.
Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit from what you said and just give myself a little pat on the back there for a minute, because I think sarcastically I do. I think my eldest is the one that's in the relationship. My eldest is a lot like me. My youngest is a lot like my ex-wife.
Right.
And so if my eldest has found that way of, looking for the calm, that's because of my wonderful parenting skills, and that's just connected to me. So she's,
but now you're quite calm in relationships, and you're stable. And
wow, it's a really deep question, because the answer that I would give you versus the answer everybody else would give you might not be the same.
Right. From the lens of a partner.
No.
Right. From the lens of you?
No.
So what are you talking about?
I think I want things to be calm.
Yeah, you're craving calm.
And I don't want things to be. I'm not needy.
Yeah.
So I'm fiercely independent, and my wife Anna is fiercely independent as well, and that works for me because that neediness doesn't make me feel comfortable. But also, there isn't a romantic bone in my body.
Okay, so you have that avoidant kind of independent trauma response where you love space, you love independence, you could live separately, wouldn't bother you. You are quite guarded emotionally, so your partner might sometimes wonder what you're thinking or feeling. And you love that person, you want to be with somebody, but you don't want to be emotionally intimate all day, every day. So you like them in the house, but you don't want to be talking all day, every day. And doing anything. Does that sound a bit familiar?
Yeah, really familiar.
And then what will happen is sometimes your partners question if you love them or not, because you're so strong with or without them. You do love them, but your love is an avoidance style where it's like, I love you, but I'm going to do my life. And if you want to come along, you're most welcome. But I'm not going to change everything just for a relationship. It doesn't work like that for avoidance. Does that sound familiar?
It sounds spot on. And I think that a lot of that comes from going through a divorce the first time. I think that plays a part in realizing that you don't want to attach yourself to somebody forever, only to feel pain from that experience.
It's very painful.
Yeah. To me, it was like death, even though...
Worse than grief, I always say, because people kind of normalize the divorce, but with grief, there's a level of acceptance that this didn't work and it's out of your hands. But with divorce, it leaves people absolutely traumatized. And I think because it's so common and people forget, and even when your friend's getting a divorce, it's just like, oh, that's a shame. But people don't realize that person's going through trauma.
Okay. Well, there's that aspect, plus the aspects of, my parents got divorced when I was 7 and my dad left.
Oh, okay. So was it just a divorce?
So my parents got divorced. My dad, as in, left the country, went to live in another country.
Right. With another family, or?
So he started another family since, but he went to live in another country and working overseas. And so my dad was my hero. And then all of a sudden he's not there. And so I felt abandoned.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I ever got over that feeling of being abandoned. So I find it very hard to abandon.
Yeah, you find, but the thing is with people with your response, they don't let go of a relationship, but even so, because they don't want to abandon anyone, but they emotionally abandon. That's their way of protecting themselves. So they'll be there, but emotionally they won't be as intimate as a partner would like. And somehow they'll always they'll never cheat or anything, not necessarily cheat, but they'll keep their eyes open. They can be a bit critical of their partners. It's their way of creating emotional distance. So even after intimacy, even after sexual intimacy, they might go jump on their laptop and do some work, or they might go on their phone. Does that sound familiar? Astaghfirullah. Yeah,
Not at all. Not at all. Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's the avoidant methodology of maintaining relationships, but there's an emotional distance to prevent the pain of abandonment. So the partner is always left confused. Does this person even like me? But only when the partner threatens to leave, then they're like, no, I love you. Like, grand gestures. But when they come back, they're like, it's as if business as usual.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a trauma response.
Yeah, you've that's a perfect description.
It's a very common response. A lot of men have this and don't realize it, and their partners think, oh, they're narcissists. Stop narcissistic. It's a trauma response because you don't not care about your partner. This is how you love from a distance, because it's painful loving so intimately and then they leave. So you're operating from a place of fear, but it doesn't look like that because you look so strong and independent. But you're operating it out of a fear of abandonment. And usually you attract clingy partners because for some reason the clingy people love the avoidant people, because the avoidant people reinforce their view that they're not loved correctly and nobody loves them correctly. God. Yeah, isn't it so draining? So that's why it's good that you've got a partner